Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever felt totally paralyzed by a tiny social mistake? Or maybe you felt like a complete outcast in a group, convinced that everyone is actively ignoring you? Well, I promise you, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating behavioral science and neuroscience that explains exactly why our brains react this way, and more importantly, how we can actually reprogram them. Picture this. You just spilled coffee down your shirt, or maybe you stumbled over your words in a really important meeting. Almost instantly, you feel that intense, burning embarrassment, right? You're completely convinced that everyone in the room is watching and judging your every move. It literally feels like a giant, blinding spotlight just clicked on and it's pointing dead at you. But what if I told you that this overwhelming, suffocating sensation is mostly just a misfire? It's actually your brain's ancient evolutionary threat detection system playing a massive trick on your own mind. To unpack all this, we're going to explore 5 core concepts today. 1, the spotlight effect. 2, the illusion of transparency. 3, the pain of rejection. 4, exclusion and self-regulation. And finally, 5, shifting your perspective. Let's kick things off with section 1, the spotlight effect, or being center stage in your own mind. So here's the deal. Because we are so hyper-aware of ourselves, walking around acting as the main character in our own daily movie, our brains take a very sneaky mental shortcut. We just assume everyone else is as laser-focused on us as we are. Psychologists call this process anchoring and adjustment. We basically start from our own internal perspective, which is the anchor, and that's highly focused on our own mistake or how we look. Then we try to adjust that to guess what other people are seeing. The problem? We consistently underadjust. We falsely assume others see us almost exactly the way we see ourselves. To prove this, researcher Thomas Gilovich ran a really clever and honestly kind of cruel experiment. He forced college students to wear a deeply embarrassing t-shirt featuring the singer Barry Manilow and then sent them straight into a room full of strangers. These students wildly overestimated how many people actually noticed their embarrassing shirt. They were absolutely convinced they were the center of the tension. In reality, barely anyone glanced their way. This is such a brilliant proof that we anchor on our own feelings of embarrassment and completely fail to adjust for the simple fact that other people have their own busy lives to worry about. Moving right along to section 2, the illusion of transparency and why people actually can't read your mind. You know that feeling when your heart is just pounding out of your chest during a presentation? Or you're feeling intense anxiety at a party? You probably think everyone can clearly see your panic, like your emotions are literally leaking out of you. But research actually shows that people are terrible mind readers. Your internal state is far, far less obvious than you feel it is. You are simply not transparent. This is just another cognitive bias. The outside world cannot feel the adrenaline pumping through your veins, even though it feels completely deafening to you in the moment. And this disconnect brilliantly illustrates why people with social anxiety suffer so much. According to research models by Clark and Wells, people experiencing social anxiety get trapped in what is called the observer perspective. They're constantly visualizing themselves failing from the outside, essentially imagining a distorted, exaggerated version of themselves, stuttering or blushing, kind of like watching themselves on a movie screen. The actionable strategy here is to actively shift your brain back to the field perspective. That just means looking naturally out at the scene from behind your own eyes, focusing on your actual environment rather than internally monitoring yourself. But what about when it isn't just in our heads? Let's look at section 3, the pain of rejection, and what happens when exclusion is real. Psychologists Roy Baumeister and Mark Leary developed the need to belong theory. The basic idea is that because our ancient ancestors relied so heavily on group protection just to survive, we are evolutionarily wired to be hypersensitive to any signs of rejection. Think about it. If you were ostracized from your tribe thousands of years ago, you lost your access to food and protection. It was essentially a death sentence. So our brains adapted to treat social rejection as a massive, high-alert survival threat. And this is exactly why rejection hurts so deeply. It's not just a metaphor. Incredible fMRI neuroimaging scans have shown that the exact same part of your brain, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, lights up when you experience social exclusion, the exact same way it does when you experience actual physical pain. When someone ignores you, gives you the silent treatment, or excludes you from a group chat, your brain's alarm system goes off exactly as if you had just stubbed your toe or burned your hand on a hot stove. Social pain is physically real to your nervous system. Which brings us to section 4, exclusion and self-regulation, and the behavioral fallout of this rejection. Roy Baumeister followed up with some incredible behavioral science research, testing a very specific question. When people are rejected, do they try to improve their behavior to win back friends, or do they just completely give up on their self-regulation? To figure this out, researchers gave participants a personality test and then randomly assigned them to receive fake feedback. One group was told they had a future of belonging, but the other group was brutally told based on their tests that they were destined to end up alone in life. The results were pretty staggering. The socially excluded group, the ones told they'd end up alone, just couldn't force themselves to drink a healthy but bad-tasting vinegar drink. Instead, they impulsively binged on unhealthy cookies, eating way more than the accepted group. And when they were given a really frustrating puzzle, they gave up much faster. Social exclusion literally caused their self-regulation and willpower to completely collapse. But here's the really fascinating part. The researchers dug deeper and discovered that excluded people aren't actually unable to self-regulate just because they're in a bad mood. If they were offered a cash incentive, boom, they suddenly could control themselves perfectly fine. The real issue is that they are simply unwilling to make the effort. Think about it. Human society is built on this implicit social bargain. We curb our selfish impulses and follow the rules because we are rewarded with social acceptance. When a person is rejected, that bargain is broken. Their brain says, why should I bother putting in the hard work of good behavior if society isn't going to accept me anyway? So how do we fix this? Let's dive into our final concept, Section 5, shifting your perspective and escaping the spotlight. Honestly, the most empowering psychological relief you can take away from this explainer is this realization right here. While you are worried about your own missteps, everyone around you is entirely absorbed in starring in their own mental movie. Think about the last time you felt a colleague judged your presentation. The reality? They were probably entirely focused on what they were going to have for lunch or agonizing over some awkward email they sent that morning. We simply do not have the attention span to heavily scrutinize the supporting characters in our lives because we are way too busy playing the lead role in our own. So, are you ready to step out of that imaginary spotlight and realize you're just a passing extra in everyone else's movie? The next time you trip on the sidewalk, send a weird text, or feel like everyone in a big group is ignoring you, remember the science. Your brain's cognitive biases are taking mental shortcuts, making you feel entirely transparent and hyperlizable. The spotlight is mostly in your head. Actively shift your focus from the observer perspective back out into the field perspective. Freeing yourself from this illusion is absolutely the first and most crucial step to real social confidence. So the next time you feel everyone's eyes on you, just ask yourself, are you actually in their spotlight, or are you just casting a shadow in your own?